Arizona have been more than patient, waiting for Washington to act. But decades of federal inaction and misguided policy have created a dangerous and unacceptable situation.
Arizona Governor Jan Brewer on Friday explaining why she decided to sign the toughest immigration law in the nation. And it's time now for our Sunday group. Brit Hume, Fox News senior political analyst, and contributors Mara Liasson of National Public Radio, Bill Kristol of the Weekly Standard, and Juan Williams also from National Public Radio. So let's take a look at what this new Arizona law does and put it up on the screen. It makes it a state crime to be in the U.S. illegally. Legal immigrants must carry paperwork proving their status. Police are required to check anyone they have a reasonable suspicion is illegal. And people can sue local governments if they think immigration law is not being enforced. Britt, is it good policy? And as our resident Supreme Court Justice, the 10th Justice, do you think it'll stand up to court challenges?
I'm not sure it's going to stand up to court challenge. People see it as a usurpation of a federal law enforcement function, that is to say the protection of the borders. I think it's emergency policy. And I think it's going to be quite a trick to train the police officers in that state so that they can carry out this mandate to check anybody who they have a reasonable suspicion of being in the country illegal without engaging in profiling or violating their civil rights. I think that's going to be very difficult to do. I think there probably inevitably will be some civil rights violations. The question really, though, is, it seems to me, is did Arizona act reasonably here under the circumstances by passing this somewhat draconian law? And the answer, I think, may well be yes, because they're facing a serious crisis down there induced by the presence in their midst of a lot of illegals, some of whom are causing some really terrible problems. I think it's a big political problem for the Republicans to be responsible for this. It's not going to be popular. It's going to be controversial, alienate Latinos, big vote. But I think the fault really lies with the utter failure of the federal government in Washington to deal with this issue.
Mara?
I think as a political document, I agree with Britt. I think it's going to further cement the image of Republicans as the party that's against Hispanics, and it certainly really cost them at the polls when that image was created in 2007. I think that, interestingly enough, one of the things on that list of provisions the law does is going to be in any final immigration bill, which is some kind of documentation, whether it's an ID card or whatever. So that is going to be something that's going to be a permanent feature when we finally get a resolution. But I do think that it has added to this conversation about whether or not we should move forward, the Congress should move forward right now or not with an immigration bill.
Before we get to the politics, I want to go back to the merits of it, Bill. And the claim from critics that it institutionalizes racial profiling on a number of areas. The Supremacy Clause, Article 1 of the Constitution, which gives you can see I've done a little studying up on this, so I thought I might as well get it out. Which gives the federal government control over immigration, and also the 14th Amendment on reasonable search and seizure. Does it violate the Constitution?
I doubt that it violates the Constitution. If it does, it's a matter of federal preemption as against state law. I don't think it violates anyone's civil rights. And I think, look, I'm a liberal on immigration. I supported the Bush-McCain proposals in 2006. Took a lot of grief from some of our conservative friends on this. I have actually read this bill. It is not draconian. It is not going to lead to major civil rights violations. Will a few people get stopped, perhaps, because some policeman has reasonable suspicion that a person's illegal? Will he be stopped, perhaps, on the street and asked to provide his driver's license? Yes. That is the huge, horrible civil rights violation that's going to occur 5 times or 8 times or 13 times in Arizona. Meanwhile, Arizona has almost 500,000 illegal immigrants. There are huge burdens on the hospitals and crimes being committed near the border, and it's not unreasonable for Arizona to do this. Here's what a politician said Friday as part of this alleged hysteria on immigration. He said, people who are here in America illegally need to get right with the law, pay a penalty, and pass a criminal background check or face removal. You know who said that?
Yeah,
Barack Obama. That is the spirit of the law. Yeah. And the left, the liberal, and the Democrat. No, I'm sorry, it's the spirit of the Arizona law.
Oh, I see.
What's the law he wants? He's president of the United States. He's doing nothing about it. 500,000 illegal immigrants are in Arizona, and the state of Arizona decided finally maybe we could try to do a little bit of something about this.
Why?
Well, Mitch McConnell's here this morning, and he says the problem in Arizona is that the federal government has not acted. Why is the federal government not acted, Bill? It's because Republicans so far have refused to do anything about this illegal immigration crisis in America.
You're right. The Republicans control the presidency and the Senate and the House.
Oh, as I recall, President Bush tried to do something, and then what happened? Republicans in the Senate blocked any effort at immigration reform. Ronald Reagan did something about it in his time. Why is it that Republicans today refuse to do anything?
That was then, this is now.
Yeah? So
The
what's your
Democrats
point?
control the works.
Okay, oh, so now we blame everything on the Democrats at this moment.
Juan, the point is, what we're now coming toward the end of a second year for this president. He has control of everything. His party has controlled, the Congress toward the latter stages of the Bush years. So there's been plenty of opportunity here. Now they're going to try to move an immigration bill in the Senate.
Right.
We'll see.
But what are the prospects, you think, with almost uniform Republican opposition? That's the reason that things have been paralyzed or frozen for so long. So now we get local action, and I think it's imprudent action. As our studious friend Chris Wallace says, it's a violation of the Constitution, unreasonable search and seizure. Bill Kristol says, 8 to 13 times, is that what you said? Someone's going to stop some guy on the street. No. Let me tell you something. Anybody with now a Hispanic accent, anybody with brown skin is going to get harassed, especially if you're a young person.
You think that's what the Arizona cops are like?
No.
They just are going around looking for people with brown skin to harass.
Well, let me tell you something. The mayor of Phoenix said that, and you know what? Governor Brewer, in making her announcement, said we're going to try to prevent this kind of thing from taking place. She acknowledges this is a huge problem, and I know, having been recently in Mexico, there's a huge drug problem, and there's a huge drug crisis that's coming across the border. But this is something for the federal government to deal with, and the fact that Washington refuses to deal with it is just terrible. It's evidence our government's not functioning.
I agree with you. I think that's right, Juan, it is. But at this point, it seems to me there's plenty of blame to go around. But the idea that in a Washington that is totally controlled by one party, that you would blame the minority party for the problems, it seems to me unreasonable.
Let me ask you, Mara, about the politics of it, because we saw something interesting today, I thought, from Mitch McConnell. The conventional wisdom has been this is a good political to now bring up immigration reform, and in fact to push it to the distress of Lindsey Graham ahead of energy reform is a good move, smart move by Democrats, because they're going to get on the side of the Hispanics, they'll get them mobilized, they'll vote for Democrats in November. But Mitch McConnell put the opposition to it in terms of we've got a serious economic problem. We've got 10% unemployment. There are Americans who are looking for jobs. We can't be worrying at this point about how we get more immigrants into this country.
There is a serious question about timing, not just for the economy, because this is in the teeth of a recession, but also for the Democrats. I think over the medium term, and I mean by 2012, this is a must-pass piece of legislation for Democrats. They cannot go before the voters in 2012 without having done this. Now, for 2010, I think it's a completely different matter. I think although in the long term it's more divisive for Republicans, they cannot win national elections while alienating the biggest growing block of voters. In the short term, it is a divisive thing for Democrats.
Bill, your thoughts about how this plays out politically? If there's and I think most people in Washington think there's very little chance that they'll actually pass immigration reform before the November election, but how it plays politically, plus or minus for the president and the Democrats to be pushing immigration reform?
I think it cuts both ways, but honestly, it's a political matter. I would prefer to be tough on illegal immigration and run the risk of being portrayed as anti-Hispanic. A lot of Hispanic citizens are unhappy about illegal immigration, than the opposite. I think this is Harry Reid making a political judgment based on Nevada, which may or may not be correct, trying to save his seat in Nevada, that is going to damage Democrats throughout the country in Senate and House races.